And so, Nadir, hatch secure, life support running, and we are ready for the water.
Remarkable stuff here. Captured for the first time ever a giant squid in its natural habitat.
No one has dived to 1,000 meters in Antarctica.
My depth, 1,000 meters on bottom, over.
Today, we have ways of looking at the reef which give us a completely new vision of one of the greatest treasures of the natural world.
We're on a new frontier of ocean exploration that will bring out the explorer in all of us.
OceanXplorer will be the most cutting-edge, futuristic, inspirational ocean exploration ship on the water.
Having everything together on this vessel allows us to go from exploration all the way to discovery in the same context.
We've only discovered and explored a fraction of our world's oceans.
We need to make people understand what we do in the next 10 years is going to determine what the ocean looks like in 200 years' time.
The Young Explorers program is an opportunity for students to be immersed in research.
Audiences glued to Blue Planet 2 have been starkly reminded of the problems of plastics pollution.
Hello to everyone joining us from around the world and in Davos. Here we are coming to you from half a kilometer below the surface of the ocean.
In this campaign, we brought coral reefs to literally millions of New York City transit riders.
50 years ago, Jacques Cousteau and the Calypso managed to capture our imagination. Somehow we lost that moment. We have to get back that personal connection to the sea.
The greatest era of exploration is still ahead of us. Exploring the ocean can help provide a piece to the big puzzle.
I imagine it's going to excite and inspire a lot of people.
Wow, thank you so much, OceanX. That was a fantastic video. Okay, this next segment that we're on about is about the science and innovations of oceans in Southeast Asia. And we're here, we're on OceanX. Who would have thought? And looking out, we see so many friends here. And then we don't only just see friends, we actually also see the pioneers who are getting us going. Of course, the wonderful Dalio Philanthropy folks who galvanized all of us and got us going. And then there's Fred in front, paying attention to me as usual, Fred. Fred is such a friend, such a pioneer in the Blue Oceans community, and we are grateful for those with such hearts and deep humanity for the ocean as well. So come on up. I'm going to get everyone up now for our discussion. We've got Vincent again, Hannah Jones, who's the CEO of the Earthshot Prize, Tan Wei, who is with the NUS, Marine Sciences Group, and Fred, do I say IMC, TPC, what now? So Fred has reminded me that his wonderful IMC group is now called TPC. They did a big review last week. Fred, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to tell us why from IMC to TPC.
Well, we've been around for 120 years and evolved, but I think we have to remember our roots, especially in this era where Asia is rising and we have to reclaim our identity and our roots and our new expression. So I pick back into the old days. Thank you.
Back into your roots. Thank you so much, Fred. Okay, let's start with you, Vincent. OceanX here in the region for at least 5 years. Why?
Well, I want to take this opportunity first just to say thank you to Fred. Fred is a partner of ours, a long-term partner with OceanX. As you mentioned, his group, TPC Group, is a partner in the Blue Oceans community here at PAA, along with Dalio Philanthropies. And with OceanX, are working with Fred to integrate and co-create leadership programs with his Octave Institute. Thank you, Fred, and looking forward to a future together. Why Southeast Asia? I mentioned before that this ship actually was inspired and built specifically for Southeast Asia. And I say that because our original ship, Alusha, which traveled basically the entire globe, during our time here in Southeast Asia, all of us, Ray, myself, Mark, were so inspired by this area, by the diversity of the waters and everything, that when building this vessel, we had this place in mind from originally. So its home, really, is here in Southeast Asia.
What do you mean when you say you built it specifically for Southeast Asia? How is it different here from elsewhere?
The biodiversity, the aspects of this ocean, because it's the meeting of three oceans, the continental drift, the close proximity to the equator, the diversity that you see around you on land is mirrored in the shallow water and is mirrored in the deep. And what we learned from the last time we were here is the deep in this region is wholly unexplored. So if you imagine how diverse and beautiful the world is above the water, and in those shallow reefs that you see in Raja Ampat, that you see in Komodo, that you see in Malaysia, in the deep water, they're mirrored by that diversity, but nobody can see it. So 95% of that deep ocean has never been mapped and never been explored. So that is, we have a lifetime of vessels like this ahead of us to explore this area.
So what, the equipment here is different, special, made for these waters?
The boat was built, the ship was built by myself and Ray and Jerry, who's somewhere here in the room. Shout out to Jerry, there he is, waving in the back, he's the man. Built this vessel from the advice of 257, I think it was, approximately, scientists, filmmakers, and we put together this vessel to make it the most functional, which I think today it is the most functional oceanographic research vessel, because we can study all the aspects that are very interesting in Southeast Asia. Shallow water, which you have beautiful reefs and mangroves and these things, as well as midwater. You have a ton of systems on board for midwater, as well as very deep and aerial by having a helicopter to look at megafauna. So it can go out and it sort of does this crash study of an area, in-depth study of an area with all the assets getting into the water all day. So the only place I've been in my entire career around the earth is this area in Southeast Asia that is so ripe for this kind of work, because the ocean is so important to this community, more important probably than anything. Indonesia is the largest coastline of any. The economy is based on shipping, it's based on maritime, it's based on fisheries. All the things come together around ocean in Southeast Asia.
Indeed, when you talk about fishing, of course, and shipping, that is Fred's area. The family's been in shipping for a long, long time. So Fred, the love for the deep ocean, I know reflects your love, a deep love for humanity as well.
I suppose rather than love for the ocean, which I do have, and ships, because I'm a naval architect, is a realization that all these years of maritime business focus on extraction and use of the ocean. Never crossed our mind that the ocean now needs replenishment, needs restoration. So I've been passing a message to my industry. There's a new opportunity that we need to grab, but we need to invest long term to understand it, because the ocean needs to be replenished and restored, because if the ocean tip over, you have no idea what may happen. So that's the reason we started this thing. We hope the Dalio Foundation can focus on research and knowledge, and we focus on project of actually restoration, and they train scientists, we train engineers.
Okay, we'll discuss more about that, but I wanted to ask you, Fred, so the message you say you have is about restoration as opposed to extraction from the ocean. How did your fellow professionals take to that message?
It takes a little time, but I endow them with the Holy Spirit of all kinds. That makes it goes in deeper and deeper as the night progresses. So we have a maritime week. This last night we have 200 some people there. We also have sustainability people, impact people, and I hope that together with the Holy Spirit, they got some impacted.
Well, there's the Holy Spirits, you mean?
Holy Spirits, yes.
No, but if I hark back to Rob's session as well, is it a generational thing?
Well, I suppose I'm still very young.
No, I was including you. Sorry, I didn't mean. So is it your young generation that will be leading this change?
Look, as a family business, we think in generations. So we can afford to invest long term. And so therefore, before the market has a want, we understand a need must be satisfied. We're the one family business that must take the lead in making business reform to meet the true needs of human. Let this economy be educated differently than the current marketing economy, because we need it.
You know, Fred, I hear you. You're from a family. You can wait a long time. If you've been listening to Hannah Jones from the Earthshot Prize, it's about urgent optimism. We can't wait. We don't have the time. I'm going to let Fred answer first before I go on to you. How do you reconcile that? You say we've got time.
We can wait a long time for no returns or even long investment. But as I said earlier, we can't wait until everything tips over. I provoke not thought leadership, but action leadership. We don't know what's the future. Doing is knowing.
Love it. Action leadership. Hannah, urgent optimism and the TEP, which is the message that you have as well. And Oceans is center to the solutions that you're after. Tell us more about that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jen. And we're going to talk. I love your leadership there, because it is about how you reconcile building for that long-term future in markets and financial systems that don't incentivize that, whilst working with deep urgency right now. So at the Earthshot Prize, Oceans is one of our 5 Earthshot challenges that we put out to the world. And over the last 3 years, Jen, we have seen incredible solutions coming in to be nominated for the Oceans Earthshot Challenge, whether it's communities of mayors across all of Southeast Asia, led through the Philippines, called Coastal 500, where the mayors are coming together to think, how can we enable coastal communities to stop overfishing and to find alternative models of economic prosperity and protect marine protection areas? Or it's seaweed farmers that are figuring out how to take fossil fuel out of packaging and replace it with seaweed and create economies for coastal communities. Or it's even wildlife marine that actually goes out and teaches coastal communities how to enforce marine protected areas. So we see this enormous movement of innovation. But the thing that keeps us awake at night is 2 things. The first is we know that we need to collectively protect 30% of oceans by 2030. And last time I looked, that's not far away. And what we know is that with the solutions we see, the issue is about how do you speed them to scale. And this is where we need people who think big and different and bold and long-term, to take philanthropy as the first risk capital, to bring in the policymakers, to bring in the VCs and the institutions and the banks, and to disrupt in order to restore our ocean, without which we are none of us going very far.
Indeed, indeed. You said 5 areas of focus: oceans,
biodiversity, a zero-waste world, clean air, and climate change.
And when you look at all 5, which one gets the most? Meaning, where's oceans in all of this?
Well, oceans is the most underfunded.
Exactly.
And yet it's the one that, since I joined the Earthshot Prize, I've actually fallen deeply in love with, because the innovations and the passion of the communities around the world innovating, whether they're scientists, whether they're people that have dropped out of Yale University, not you, but actually gone to set up coral restoration farms in the Bahamas. You know, this is a community of dedicated, passionate people using their time and talent and ingenuity to try to solve problems in the oceans. So you have this enormous supply of innovators, and a very, very measly amount of capital going into it. I think in this community with PAA, let's change that. Let's change that and lead the way in Southeast Asia.
Indeed, that's the process that the TEP has. For those of us who are in this region, actually it's global, but since we're talking about Asia right now, there are the nominators. There is a process to get the great startups that you have, that you know about in this space, onto the whole TEP platform as well, because we need more oceans solutions.
Absolutely, and
Just
let's help
not
them
enough.
all to learn from each other, create best practices, and then with COAXIS, with PAA, and with our work, how do we bring and crowd in funding to support people?
So, you know, PAA had a Blue Oceans Community Workshop. This was just on Tuesday, and there were some pretty key takeaways that they had. One is that the ocean's turning sour. No ifs, no buts. It's running out of breath. We've got to pay attention to it. We've got to apply the science to it, and it needs all of our effort as well. Government, private sector, philanthropists, but definitely more science is needed around it as well. And, you know, Downway, I know that's the work that you're focused on, bringing science to the marine biodiversity that we need to understand here. Tell us about your project.
I work in the academic and research sectors, and so when you read the academic literature now, it's the same as when you browse the media, the conventional media, with all the doom and gloom that you know, habitats are being destroyed and ecosystems are failing. We are right now actually in the 4th global coral bleaching event. So coral bleaching is happening as we speak in areas in Southeast Asia as well as in Pacific Islands and so on. So it's really easy to fall into this this hole of you know, trying to figure out what has gone wrong, you know, and that everything is hopeless and so on. But on the other hand, I think we have also seen a fair bit of the solutions that are being produced. And actually, if you ask me, my personal perspective is that, of course, we need to fund the science, the cutting-edge science that we need to develop in the next decades. But actually, we already have all the solutions that we need, right, to restore ecosystems. And I think the question is, how do we bring those solutions to the right habitats, to the right communities, and of course to all the communities that actually need them, right? So I've always been inspired by the people who have come up with the solutions, but actually the nature is also inspiring. So if you actually just look around you, you know, it's all developed Singapore, but I can tell you right now, if you go out there diving, you just walk out there, or during a low tide, you walk out there, and you'll see amazing diversity just in Singapore. You see all the ships passing by, all the reclamation that's happening, you know, all the industry. But amidst all of that, there's still species that thrive even in this kind of conditions. And I think that gives us hope, right? So both nature and the people who have been developing solutions, I think what we need to do is to bring them together and bring the solutions to nature and to restore specific ecosystems. And I think, of course, the science of which areas to go to will still come into play. We continue to develop technologies. We continue to have prizes that will award very cutting-edge and innovative ideas. But I think we already have all the solutions, or not me, but the world already has all the solutions. I think we just need to bring them together. And I hope that you know, we get the support, not just from philanthropy, but also from the private and also public sectors as well.
So, Dongwei, let me understand this properly. You're saying we know what needs to be done. It's all there. We know exactly what needs to be done, but we don't have the funding for it. So,
if you read literature, academic literature, hundreds of papers on coral restoration, for instance, are published every month. So there's abundance of solutions, but funding is one of the challenges. But it's really specific funding, and I would say that there's currently, I feel that there's perhaps a gap, right, between what various sectors might be looking at, right. So for instance, if you're looking at the current global coral bleaching event, now the government and public agencies are trying to understand, okay, what can we do? What should we do now to restore or to prevent bleaching and so on. Of course, philanthropy is important, and philanthropists and givers will of course be trying to understand what are the long-term sustainable solutions that we can have. So there is, I guess, a discrepancy between those, what is being needed by different agencies and different gifters. So I think we need to bridge that information gap, right, and allow the science to be conveyed right to both parties or to all parties, so that we can at least have a common conversation about what are the real priorities that we need to address, right? And I think for us is having to, as you say, put boots on the ground when we need them, and now is the time we need to put boots on the ground. If you rely on government, rely on public sector, it's going to take years. And so we need to mobilize those support from the philanthropy to have that nimble approach where we can put money in there, get people on the ground, do the surveys, do the monitoring, figure out what's the best strategies to restore the ecosystems.
Right. Okay, I hear you, Dangwei. So with the philanthropists, it's a fantastic source of funding, which is nimble. It can de-risk some of the projects before it's taken on by governments and even the private sector. Okay, awful pun coming ahead, so, brace yourself. Even with all that money, it's a drop in the ocean, a mere drop in the ocean. We need money from all sectors, the philanthropic money, plus the private sector money, plus the government money. We need all of that collaboration to come together, but it ain't easy. Fred is the youngest senior person here. By far. Why is it so hard to get collaboration going amongst these sectors?
Leadership. For example, I met Mark because we joined the PAA, and on the launch, we have a dinner sitting next to each other, and we love ships, so we start talking about all these things. Then, of course, the thing gets serious about the problem. And then we meet again in a number of things. So I have to salute action by government. Indirectly in this case, like PAA, galvanized possibility for us to focus. Because when we want to provide leadership, we don't know how to find place. I don't think I'm going to call up, hey, Mark, I'm Fred. I only have OceanX, right? So it's all these platform leadership and, of course, Holy Spirits that help us talk, dream together, and create possibility. So what we short most, if you look at the world, is leadership.
Leadership. I hear you, Fred. With leadership, though, it can start too late sometimes. We need leadership from a younger and younger stage, younger and younger age. And I know, Vincent, that's where it's important for you as well. Not just the science and the exploration, but also the education that goes around oceans. What are you all doing with that?
I think that there's this generational difference. I have young children, and as we heard earlier today, the young generation has a totally different perspective on how they're going to treat the world, how they're going to treat the earth. But we're still in the leadership positions in this world. Not me per se, but you. And therefore, this is coming. It's here. These problems, these solutions are here. And our generation needs to implement, needs to lead in that direction. And I'm proud and happy to meet Ray along my adventures and to have his leadership of saying, Vincent, this is a problem. I see it from diving. What do we do about it? And let's just drive forward. And being a victim of the American government for years as a Yale scientist and a professor and relying on public funding, the leadership and the way that Ray and the private sector does things, because he's obviously a very successful private sector person, decided to do what we're doing here would not happen in the confounds of a public. So leading it and applying that skill that you get from being in the public sector for so long, applying that to these problems, it's miraculous, honestly, compared to what we get in the public.
So, Fred, with TPC and Vincent, you, OceanX, and Dalio Philanthropies, that's the collaboration that's going on as well in oceans education. I need
and
to...
execution,
And
too.
execution, sure. It's not going to be stuck there. We heard you, Boone. We heard you. So help me understand the different parts of education that you're looking at. You mentioned marine engineer. Ocean engineers is your focus for education. And for you, Vincent?
So I think what we were talking about earlier, Fred, is that there's the basic science, which is a lot of already out there, but in region specific needs to be there. And then, but that science, we're very poor at implementing that. And that's where we need public sector. That's where you need people like Fred to train and educate the generation of people who are going to execute on those ideas and those plans and make those economies to scale, because science will never provide that. That needs to be done in the public sector.
Yeah. So when you are executing a project, the science keep feeding, and we keep coming back why it doesn't work. The scientists can work with us. Then young people come, has to stay longer time to execute it, develop passion and connection with nature, and more important, within that program, we have leadership class.
And I want to go down the route which Rob had gone down as well, which is as you look forward years down, let's say 2030, which is also the timeline the Earthshot Prize has, where do you see philanthropy? Where do you want to see it? Dang Wei, I'll start with you.
I think a lot of the solutions as we talk about are actually quite low cost, right? So I've been doing this, for instance, coral transplantation for many decades, and they have worked. And what we really need to do is to scale it up. So I would say that philanthropic resources should be devoted to just a little bit of the research to try to understand how to scale it up, and then the rest is really the reach, right? And which will require us to reach out to communities, and we look at, coral reefs around the region. It's really only 5% that we have been studying and really monitoring very, very closely. So we really need to, open up our the ability to monitor more sites and to bring those solutions to those communities that will need them. And of course, we cannot. We have always to remember that when we take away the habitat, either because of degradation or because we say we need to protect a site, we may be taking away livelihoods. So I think we also need to focus on the socio-ecological implications of those, and I think philanthropic resources will be most best devoted to that.
Are we doing enough for the whole philanthropic community, you think, to understand that entire ecosystem that you're talking about? Because you didn't just talk about the marine diversity, you talked about livelihoods of those along the coastal areas as well. And usually you're the last, the marine biologist is the last person we'd have such a conversation with. Should more be done? Who should be doing that ecosystem education?
I think we'll start with us. It's a community where we have the resources. But ultimately, when we go to the communities, it's really the village chief, the teachers there, and people there who will be implementing those solutions. All of us combined is not enough to be everyone to be doing all that on our own. So we really need to inspire not just our next generation, but people in other areas where they have been relying on nature for a long time, and understanding how they can actually benefit from a healthier ocean and healthier habitats.
Okay, Dang Wei. For you, Hannah, philanthropy in 2030, where would you like to see it headed? What do you want to see?
I would really love to see philanthropy thinking of itself as the people that take the bold risks that set up the world for a transformation. And I'd like to see philanthropists working together and challenging the corporate sector and challenging government and challenging the venture capitalists to match them and to double them, because they're the ones taking the bold bets. I'd like to see a world in which 30% of oceans are protected. And I'd like to see that there was more value and fame and delight that goes into the people that are the stewards of the oceans than those that are extracting the oceans.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Hannah. Fred.
2030. I wish in 2030 we awaken up to the true nature of philanthropy. That besides filial or eros, there's an agape. That truly would help us express our love, and we need it because without that, we can't change the world. I hope that philanthropists will do that. I hope that philanthropic organization, nonprofit, is where we practice collective philanthropy, our expression of life on particular topic. It's just the way we organize. That by 2030, maybe 30% of the world has awakened up. Philanthropy is a demeanor of life. And we do it for ourselves, our family, our country, humanity, and Earth itself.
I'll drink to that, Fred. Vincent, philanthropy, as we look ahead, 2030, where would you like to see it go and be at?
I guess as a biologist, as a medical scientist that I've been my whole life, the ocean, delving into the ocean has brought me such awe, to be struck by the diversity and by the solutions that the ocean offers. The extraction that we've taken from the ocean to date is, I would consider, minimal to the amount that the ocean actually has to offer. And the short-sightedness of not seeing that, I think, is what is the most disappointing thing to a biologist. I think anybody who understands the complexity of life in the ocean and see how valuable it is to the human endeavor, how valuable everything that happens down there is to the future of where humans are headed. Because the world, as you see today, is going to be very different to the future, 30, 40 years from now, how we utilize nature in the support of human life. So seeing the ocean being damaged and depressed after a million years of evolution to where it is, to me is the saddest thing. And only through philanthropy, I believe, through its ability to move nimbly and to create things with real risk and interest, can we actually move the needle on elevating the ocean's value to humanity that I think it deserves.
Thank you so much for that, Vincent. And also, thank you so much to Dalio Philanthropies for this wonderful experience on OceanX, and to all our philanthropists here joining PAA, about to join PAA. We actually thank you for all of your support and your guidance and your teachings, because we don't know how to do this. For those of us at PAA, at Temasek Trust, it is so new for us, and it's only through you that we learn the right thing to do. So thank you so much, all of y'all. Thank you so much. Benny Lee, CEO of Tanoto, and also Vincent from OceanX. And this collaboration is on education programming in Indonesia and Singapore. And it's to leverage their strengths to bring ocean science to students and educators. I'm here to witness that it's being done. Let's hold it up and show it to everyone. Thank you so much, Tanoto Foundation. Thank you so much, OceanX. This is wonderful. Our children and our children's children, thank you.